Hey guys, Avar here. So, the P-47 has a reputation as a terrible plane in ARB. Too slow, can't climb, can't turn, and it's only useful as food for the enemy team. The D-28 version changes that, because it has an upgraded engine that fixes all of those problems and turns it into an absolute beast. In their infinite wisdom, Gaijin downtiered to 4.7 a few months back, but they forgot to move its Chinese and Italian clones, which is disappointing, but typical. And as has become tradition in these videos, I start by winning the dogfight against a plane that I really shouldn't. In this case, it's an undamaged Yak 9P. I have yellow wing damage, which makes the plane fly awkwardly in the roll department, and I'm being run down by this guy. He is faster than me at this altitude, and I already killed some of his squad mates, so he's out for revenge. If I keep dancing in front of his guns, I will die, but I'm using a trick known as -G, where I'm pitching down, which is hard to follow, people don't see it or predict it, but I throttle drop, go underneath his guns, pitch back over him is my favorite maneuver, and he's much faster. I notice that instantly, so I throttle back up immediately, point my plane at where he's going, and I have a perfect lead right onto him. Severe damage, his tail has been 50 cal'd back into the Shadow Realm, and then all it takes is another burst of 50 cals, and he is completely done. I then went on to win with 7 kills, but I have much more interesting matches to show you today, so I'm not going to waste your time. And here I am in a full down tier match. The point of this is to prove that the P-47 does not deserve to fight 3.7 planes in the slightest. Now, it sounds like I'm in a different room because I am. I've been running into some massive recording issues, and I'm having to re-record in different areas. However, the gameplay remains the same. I'm in the P-47 D-28, and my squad mate is about to go down to a Japanese Helldiver, and that is the reason why I didn't climb straight in, despite it being a full down tier. I don't want people above me forcing me down and making my game worse, so I feel confident going head-on with the VB-10 because he's a bit alone, he's on the fringes, and I'm trying to cut in from the outside, and he gets set on fire, which is good, but then he puts it out, and he will manage to survive it and make it back to base. Now, whether I will be able to kill him at the end of the game is another question, because I do have quite a lot of enemies to go through. My team is folding, the Helldiver just took out my squad mate, and a P-47 is coming at me. Now, that is the Chinese P-47, it's the version without the engine upgrade. And how much of an upgrade is it, you may ask? Well, part of the evidence is that I leveled off about a minute ago to deal with that VB-10, so my energy gain has been minimized during that time, and he is still vastly below me. We're at high altitudes where the 47 is supposed to be great, but he can't muster the energy to pitch into me, so all I had to do was wait for him to pitch up, for his energy to be exhausted, and then I could come back down and secure the kill. It was very simple. So that is kill number 1. The VB-10 is going over my left, and here's a mistake that a lot of people would make. They would decide to go after the VB-10 because, after all, he's crit, he's severely damaged, you want the kill, you want to finish it off, but you have to think about the bigger picture, and I'm thinking about going after that VB-10, but I decide ultimately that would be a mistake. And look at the center of the map. There's 4 enemies right in front of me. That's 4 potential kills, and if I go after the VB-10, I would be sacrificing these potential kills for 1 that I maybe get, and then I'm going to be beneath all of these guys. And coming back from a position like that, even against J-22s and the A6M2-0, would be extremely difficult. It would take a long time, even though I'm faster than them. Reclimbing above them would take a real while, and if they start spreading out and using teamwork, then it becomes virtually impossible to win the game in a reasonable amount of time. So I go in, I play aggressively because I know they're distracted by my friendly P-47. He goes down, but I get enough time to deal with one of the J-22Bs, and these guys are all in a squad, except for the 0, so there's the 2 remaining J-22s there who are probably communicating on voice chat, and these 3-7 planes stand absolutely no chance. Now, they would have stood a better chance of maybe getting a lucky hit on me if they decided to use teamwork, but instead what they've decided to do is they're all going to come at me one by one, and at this point all that I have to do is use the Chandelle energy trap maneuver. If you want to learn more about that maneuver, I've made a video guide on how to kill better turning planes with it, but the gist of it is that if I have more energy, all I have to do is do a shallow turn, and you're about to see the exact shallow turn I'm referring to right here. I'm pointing my plane with the cursor, and I move it with the -G key. That's going to widen my loop, and it's going to make it so that if they try to pitch into me, my turning circle will be so wide due to my excess speed that they will never get within reasonable guns range. And this J-22 here doesn't quite realize the predicament that he's in, so he's going to try to turn horizontally underneath me. And his mistake is he needs to dive away. He needs to get to the altitude or below the altitude of his friendly that's next to him, And that way, if I commit against him, I'm going to be below his teammate. Now, I could take the risk and go after him anyway, but if I fluff the shot, then I'm going to have to run away and reset. Whereas if I take the shot, still manage to stay above his teammate, I'm still in a position to do the same thing again. And this time I'm going to turn directly over him. However, I'm not going to go straight up because that would make myself vulnerable. And even if he's stalling out at 150, like he is basically right now, his shells could still find their mark. So I have to stay fast, wait until he's out of range, and then I take him down. Now, the issue is the VB-10 here does not see me for some reason. I don't know if he was just vibing on TikTok or something like that, but he does not pay attention to me until the last second. So I'm able to secure an easy kill on him. I'm able to secure an easy kill on the Zero, and I will also be able to secure an easy kill on the B-18. So I'm just going to put it up on screen here to show that it happened, and we're going to move on to the more interesting part of the late game. And here I am. I've run to the secondary airfield. I've picked up the location of the enemy J-21, who's just taken off, and now I can do the same maneuver. I'm going to go off to his right, do my sideways energy trap, where I use my excess speed to get above him, and he knows that he can't even try to pull in, so he's going to try to immediately go defensive against me. He's going to do the flat turn, but the problem with a flat turn underneath me is that it's fairly predictable, and there's just not enough speed for him to get away, and he's dead. So that's kill number 8. And for the last one, I'll do something a little bit different. This VB-10 is coming in above me, and I note as I'm coming in that he's not immediately lining up for the head-on. Now this could mean one of two things. He wants to do the last second head-on, or he believes that he has more energy because he's above me, so he should have more energy stored up, right? But the problem is I was doing 600 on the deck, and I can simply pitch in. And this plane has a 20% engine power boost over the P-47 D-25 until you reach, I think, 9,000 meters. It really doesn't matter that the D-28's engine power drops off extremely high altitudes because, for all intents and purposes, you're not going to get up there. So that's a 9-kill game in a full down tier, and it's not the only one that I'm going to be getting in this video because this plane is absolutely disgusting. And while the last 9-kill game was relatively easy, this one will be more difficult. It's another down tier. However, we have more obstacles in our way. More of the enemy team has climbed, and they're staying high. And while I am playing in a 4-man squad, my 3 squad mates will die fairly shortly, which means that I'm going to have to carry this by myself pretty much. So the issue is the B-72 in the center of the map. And this is a problem that you're going to run into a lot at this BR, is that there's a couple of planes like that, Japanese Helldiver, B-7, even something like a P-38 or a Tai 154 can give you issues. You mainly want to avoid having your position eroded by anything coming in at you up high. And in this match, I'm going to follow the same formula. I'm going towards the fringes. Now, the SP2C will always win or trade in a full commit head-on with the P-47, so I have to duck out of the way early, pull back in for a very brief period, and then shoot at him. Now, here's the reason why I love using Tracer. I shoot at the P-44, and then he dodges, and his dodge exposes him and allows me to shoot back without him getting guns on me. And this is what I like about having people see my rounds. It makes them scared. And with 50 cals, the stealth belts do, it feels like considerably less damage. You're not likely to one-shot someone in the head-on with them. And therefore, I'd rather run tracers, where I do commonly one-shot, and then I scare them into not shooting back at me. That's something I'm always going to prefer to being shot at. However, this strategy will go wrong. This J-26 comes in head-on, I dodge down, and he aimed a bit beneath me, something like that, and I go directly into his round. So now I have an orange engine. And then he makes a bit of a rookie mistake. He comes back at me after flying straight for a couple seconds. He's trying to split the difference between the two things that actually would have worked against me. If he started dogfighting me immediately after we passed, he probably would have won it, or at least he would have occupied me long enough that his teammates would have come in and become a problem. On the other hand, if he ran away and played energy and waited for his teammates to finish off the rest of my squad mates and didn't allow me to get a couple of key crucial kills, then I also would have been pretty screwed, because this engine is in the orange, and the thing about overheat is that the longer you spend in the yellow and the orange and red, the more vulnerable your engine becomes to overheating. However, even with the engine damage, I am basically just a P-47 D-25 at this point because of the horsepower difference that I had in the first place. So I'm going to continue the fight right now rather than going back to base. I'm going to target the people who are highest, with the exception of the B-7. And let's go on a bit of a side tangent about the B-7, because he will be an important character later. He's a bit of a stat padder. And the thing about these players that go for high KD ratios is that often they're actually not that good or effective. They know a lot of book moves, but in terms of winning games, being aggressive, and getting kills and carrying the team, they very rarely do that because taking unnecessary risks and decreasing their KD ratio would be unacceptable. And so while I'm engaging these guys down here, and while the BF-109 pitches into me, making another massive mistake, the B-7 is going to be hanging out at altitude. So I have this J-26 to deal with, no big deal. He's going to pitch in directly from underneath me, and I simply wait until he runs out of speed, come back down, and kill him. And this is mainly the thing about this BR. It's pretty unforgiving for new pilots. If people try to pitch into me, I will kill them. That's simple as. And another Yak-9 is going to come in, and we'll be seeing a little bit of Russian specialness here. He's missing both wingtips, and his 37mm first shot comes within inches of my wing. Fortunately for me, I am able to turn back, get the hits in. He can't pitch up anymore, thankfully. I don't know how he was able to pitch in the first place. I set him on fire, and I will be getting the finished off, which, in my mind, that makes up for the kill that I'm not going to be getting on the SP2C. I severed him, but he will manage to make it back to base, which means that I lose out on a kill and gain on a kill, so essentially it's the same thing. And now I have a decision to make. Am I going to engage these guys by myself or not? And thankfully, I do have teammates coming in a little bit behind me, and these guys are spread apart enough, and one is in front of the other enough that I can head on them sequentially. I'll go head on with the I-185 first, get a few hits on him, duck out of the way at the last second, and then I'm going to pull back in for the Ki-44. He'll do the exact same thing, which is very common with these Japanese and fighters, and especially Spitfires as well. They don't want to take the head on, and if they dodge, that gives you a window to shoot. Now, you have to have fairly decent aim to make that work, but if you do, then you can get those severe damages in. I thought about turning with the Ki-44 earlier, however, the I-185, he was engine damaged but not out of the fight, so now I'm going to extend away. I'm going to let the Spitfire start taking care of them. My teammates will be able to deal with it. I have the severe on the Ki-44, I'm not worried about it, and now my objective is to get back to base. I'm low on ammunition, my engine is about to go into the red, and if it's in the red for long enough, it's going to start flashing overheat no matter what I do. So I have to hurry home, and the B-7 coming in is now my biggest issue. However, remember what I said about high KD players not wanting to take any risks? That's this B-7 right here. We have the P-63, the Spitfire, and myself down here. These are the last fighters left on the team. We have no options left. If even one of us dies and we can't kill the B-7, we're pretty much screwed because of how well the B-7 turns, how well it climbs, and just how annoying and risky it is to deal with the Helldiver and that thing as well. So, if he comes at us and actually attacks, we should be dead. However, he stays up at altitude for the entire match. And so that allows me to repair and rearm and get back into the fight. Now, in between when I rearmed and when I turned my recording software back on, I did kill the P-8, so I managed to get the 8th kill. And now the B-72 is coming at me, or rather, that's what I think he's doing because he's again holding his altitude. Now, that's a fairly wise choice because he doesn't want to chase me all the way down. If he does a shallow dive, my plane is faster than his at this altitude, and he's going to bleed off a lot more energy than I will, and I'm eventually going to be able to get away, or at least to a more equal position. So he doesn't want to bleed his energy, he doesn't want to take the chance that I'll be able to get out of guns range before he can get to me, and he's going to simply sit up there. Now at this point, I want the 9-kill game more than I want the win or to have KD, even though I was running a Golden Eagles wager right there where I had to win. But I want to engage him now. We're winning on tickets. If I drag this out long enough, then we simply win the game anyhow. And I'm going to dive underneath him with a low yo-yo. Now that's going to give him a harder shot, and he doesn't want to take it. He goes over me, but that gives me the space to pull in. Now, because I'm a bad War Thunder player, I miss my shot, and we now go into the rate fight, where we're simply going to turn into one direction, and the plane with the better sustained turn rate will win, or at least that's the theory. The problem with the rate fight is that in a rate fight, it takes much longer to kill the enemy than if you pull into the guy with the scissors, and that means that my teammate, who was maybe 20 kilometers away when the fight started, will now close the distance. And that's the reason why you will rarely see me do rate fights on this channel unless I make a mistake or it's a 1v1. I want to make absolutely sure that I'm going to kill the guy. It just takes too much time. It opens you up to being third-partied, and in reality, the winner of the rate fight is whoever gets third-partied or fourth-partied last. So now, I will use my excess engine power to try and climb away. The issue is the B-7A2 has quite a bit of climb rate. It's quite nimble. It's quite actually very fast for a bomber. And that means that even though I'm able to put the distance on him, it's not guaranteed that I'll be able to run away, reclimb, and stall trap him, so I have to wait until my teammate comes in to distract him. And at the moment, I'm dodging his shells, and he's spraying at me in a desperation move. Now, what he's trying to do is make me do a very common mistake that newer players make, which is dodging too much when they get shot at. All I have to do is make very small moves, and then because of the distance, he's not going to hit me. But if I make large moves, bleed off the energy, and allow him to cut off the distance, then I potentially could die. So I'm going to avoid doing that. I'm going to get above him. I still don't feel confident in having enough energy to do an energy trap because of how low his stall speed is compared to mine and how easily he could simply pitch up. But now with the P-63 right next to me, he can't pull into me because he would be stalling out and he would die. He has to go underneath me. He allows me to get the crit in, and now he's going to go into the rate again. However, he decides to go into the vertical, and I have enough speed stored up this time that I can simply pull in, set him on fire, get the severe damage, and he's done. And that's another 9-kill game. I don't think that this plane should be fighting 3.7s. I think the climb rate, combined with the speed, combined with the better than average maneuverability for an American plane, the 50 cals, everything makes it slightly too strong in those down tiers. And it can handle itself in up tiers as well, even though, don't get me wrong, they're rough versus 3Us and all of the LF9s, etc. But it's still really, really good. Now, this last one is more about how to deal with enemies that are swarming you, enemies that are above you, and how to cope with the fact that you're outnumbered at altitude. And the answer is, sometimes it's best to fade away from the combat and make sure that the enemies aren't looking at you in order to survive and then get yourself into a better position slightly later on into the mid-game. Here I am. I have a Delta 2-5 closing on my right. I'm only at 10,000 feet. And this is not a full down tier. We're fighting 5.0s this game, so take the head on with the Delta 2-5. We get the typical 50 cal experience, either it one-shots them or you get a hit. And the 335 thankfully decides that he won't dogfight me, and I look towards the center of the map, and I see that there's a lot of play, and so I'm temporarily fading back towards my team. However, I think an idea, because I see that all of these guys are baited for the B-26 in front of them. You have the TOW 154, and you have that 190 that's going for the B-26 there, as well as a BF-109. And what that means is that the only real threats to me right now, that I can see anyway, are that 154, actually not the 154, rather the 190 climbing in front of me, and the 335 also in front of me. So I'm going to aim a little bit off to the side because of my 500 convergence, and that's going to smack him right in the forehead, one down. And now I have two FW-190Ds, one in front of me, one on the left, and the one on the left is closing fairly rapidly. That means he could have enough speed to be a threat to me, and I need to do something now. If I run away, actually I believe the 190D9 catches me at this altitude, so running away is not actually the right choice for me here. It's pitching it to this 190D, and he, much like the VB-10, also thought that he had enough energy that I couldn't pitch into his guns. But the problem is, if you have good enough aim, a lot of things that seem stupid become viable ideas. And now the FW-190 is coming in on me, and I'm going to simply dogfight him. I go towards, I do a split S, and then I roll out to the right. And what that does is it baits the scissors, and I was prepared for the scissors. This 190D9 is not, and the D9 being one of the worst turning 190s, as well as him not expecting it, he shoots out in front. I had cut a little bit of throttle, I had dropped a little bit of flaps, but I didn't slow down too hard because I knew I wouldn't need to. And the second that he gets set on fire and he's going down, another 190 comes in. He's at a much lower altitude, so I know I don't have to stick into the head-on. That would be an unnecessary risk. I can roll out of the way. I fake like I'm gonna go underneath his guns, then I roll back up, and that fakes him out enough that I can use my favorite maneuver, which is going over him and using lag pursuit. Now what this does is I turn to where he's just been, and that means he has to turn even more, and with the lack of energy that he has, there's simply no way that he can pitch in up to me. And so the P-63 comes in behind him, I check to make sure it's severe, and then I finish him off. And unfortunately for me, that is not the end of the game, because I do have to deal with another BF-109 above me. So, there's a BF-109 closing in from my right, and I am a lower altitude. This is one of those guys that was chasing the B-26, and when I see behavior like that from a player of chasing early game bombers or going after the wrong targets or diving off too low, I take that as an indicator that they might not be that experienced. So I'm going to go after him and engage him, even though I possess an energy and turn rate disadvantage. And the way that I'm thinking to do this is I'm thinking to dive underneath his nose to get to a higher speed where the P-47 actually does have a turn rate advantage. So look at this, I'm going to dive underneath, I'm going to make like I'm going to go defensive entirely, and then at the last second I pull back up into him. And this fools almost everyone. He's going too fast. I'm going too fast for him to actually pull in for the shot. And then I get behind him instantly. However, he then decides that he's going to go after my teammate that's on the undefended runway, which is going to give me an open shot, and 50 cals deliver. I blow off his flap at like 1.07, and he face plants it into the earth. Now the rest of the match, fairly uninteresting. I just cleaned up with a bomber in the top 154. So that's really it. This is a bit of less of a hard carry match today, and more showing off that the 47 just absolutely clubs the competition at its own BR when you do a little bit of side positioning, when you get a little bit of teams that disappear and you're able to sit at high altitude and deal with them using energy traps. Then it becomes a very fun plane to use. I love the 50 cals, I love the tracers, I love almost everything about this plane, and it has been one of my favorites since the patch. Now, if you liked the video, if you liked what you saw, please do me a favor and leave me a comment below, because I love to see it. I've linked some of my other video tutorials in the description if you want to watch, so have fun, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.